Okay. Hi everyone. Myself Nitin Muteja, and I'm an application developer at ThoughtWorks. Shruti, over to you.
Hi, myself Shruti Singhal. I'm also an application developer at ThoughtWorks.
Cool. So the agenda for today is we'll be discussing briefly about what WebAssembly is, and then we'll continue towards Blazor. That's an application framework provided by Microsoft built over WebAssembly. So what exactly is WebAssembly? So WebAssembly, it's a new type of a code that we can run in modern web browsers. So it's kind of a low-level assembly-like language in a compact binary format. So it runs with near native performance as a machine code. So it has support for various languages like C, C++, Rust, C Sharp. I think Go was also introduced in WebAssembly recently. Uh, so WebAssembly is intended to run in browsers. So it's not intended to replace JavaScript as a whole, but it's intended to run alongside JavaScript. It's intended to provide you some additional functionalities that might not be available in JavaScript APIs. Uh, so how how is WebAssembly supported? Like MVP for WebAssembly was proposed in around 2017. As of now, WebAssembly version 1.0 is shipped with all four major browsers: Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Microsoft Edge. The project roadmap for WebAssembly can be found at webassembly.org/roadmap. So you can get more details and insights about the WebAssembly project. So we'll quickly talk about the use cases. Why do we need WebAssembly when we have JavaScript available? So my question to all of you is that is JavaScript meant to have all capabilities? Like think of some use cases. You want to develop web applications for video gaming, video editing, 3D rendering, or you want to do some music production. So JavaScript, like when it started, it was meant to be just a simple scripting language, which was intended to bring some interactivity with the web applications. But over the years, like we started adding new APIs which could support interactive graphics, streaming. But still, we could see that JavaScript struggled with the performance. And moreover, like we expected, like all those APIs to support the rich set of features like which are available in other languages. So that was the drawback, that we could not reap the entire feature set of JavaScript. So as you all are aware, like we usually had like image rendering or video editing libraries already available in C, C++. So why don't we actually utilize the potential of those existing libraries? So WebAssembly then came into picture, and like now we have an API available, so that we can start consuming uh, APIs already available in C++ or other programming languages. So I'll quickly talk in brief about the WebAssembly object available that you can access from JavaScript. So WebAssembly, like it's a global object for WebAssembly functionality. Like using this object, you can load any external WebAssembly code, and you can then start invoking the functions out of that WebAssembly. So WebAssembly.global is a global variable instance available, so that if in case you want to link multiple WebAssemblies also, you can link multiple WebAssemblies and you can invoke each other. Then you have a WebAssembly.module method, so using which you can call stateless WebAssembly code. So in case you have some static methods or variables available, you can directly access those variables using the WebAssembly.module. Similarly, WebAssembly.instance, it provides you a stateful instance of that WebAssembly code, so that you can invoke all those stateful methods. The major two methods that we want to discuss is WebAssembly.instantiate streaming. So if you say that you have a WebAssembly WebAssembly.wasm, so you want to invoke its method, so you need to just provide a path to this specific method, WebAssembly.instantiate streaming, and that you would be having an instance of that WebAssembly available in your JavaScript. Similarly, like a WebAssembly would be returning you response from some API methods. So it would be holding that in a memory buffer. So using WebAssembly.memory method, you would be having access to that memory buffer, and then you can read those memory locations, and then you can do manipulations in JavaScript. I'll quickly move to WebAssembly text format. So whenever you write a code in C Sharp or C++, and you compile it, so you provide a WebAssembly. You create a WASM file. So a WASM file is the thing that you can directly consume in your browser. But WebAssembly also provides you a WebAssembly text format so that you can have a look at what kind of methods and what all variables are available in the WebAssembly. So it's just a human readable form of WebAssembly. So as you can see in this screenshot, there is a main.wasm file. The thing you are seeing at the bottom is the WebAssembly text format. So you can see there are some methods listed over here. And similarly, there are some variables to depict some constants that you have in WebAssembly. Now I'll quickly move to one of the starter codes that I've written. So the WebAssembly starter code, it consists of a C code wherein I have some methods exported. So in C, I can export all the WebAssembly methods by adding a WASM export attribute on top of the method. So as you can see, I have a main method exported. Similarly, I also have a hello world method exported in my WebAssembly. So I'll quickly move to the main.js, which is the entry point for consuming your WebAssemblies. So as you can see through this promise, like I'm fetching a WebAssembly file, then I'm creating an instance out of this. So I'm creating a stateful instance of this WebAssembly. Now, after I have this instance of WebAssembly, so I'm also trying to get a reference to the memory buffer. So as I all told you that whatever constants or memory locations are there, like if I want to access those parameters, so I can access those directly using the WebAssembly memory buffer. So I have an instance of memory buffer, and I have an instance of WebAssembly object. So as you can see, I'm directly invoking a method from this WebAssembly. I'm getting a pointer to the memory location in buffer, and then I can loop in, and I can then parse the memory buffer, and then I can display that content on my HTML. So WebAssembly Studio is available as a tool using which I think you can start creating WebAssemblies easily. So I'll quickly show you. I'll quickly show you a run of this WebAssembly. So I've already exported the same code that I had in my GitHub project. I have two methods created over here. This is my HTML file. This is my JavaScript. So I would be quickly building WebAssembly out of it. So a WebAssembly is created in the output folder. So when I run this WebAssembly, so as you can see, the response returned by my WebAssembly method is displayed in my HTML page. So that's all basic about the WebAssembly. I'll quickly stop my screen share, and then I can hand over the talk to Shruti. Shruti, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just quickly share my screen. Yeah. So that now we have seen what WebAssembly is and how powerful it is. We will now look at how .NET Core has integrated it. And with that, Blazor comes in picture. So what is Blazor? Microsoft has named it as a combination of two words, browser and Razor. So Razor, as we already know, is actually a server-side markup language. And the Razor View engine generates the HTML view, which HTML view from a template file, which is a mixture of HTML code and C# code. But the difference here is that the Razor View engine actually generates this HTML view on the server side and then send it as a response to the client. Whereas with Blazor, these Razor views would be actually generated on browser itself. So with Blazor, you would actually be able to create interactive web pages using C# code along with JavaScript or instead of JavaScript. And it will also allow you to share the code between client side and server side, the same C# code. And we'll look at it in a few minutes through a demo. So Blazor has been around for quite some time now, and it provides two hosting models, Blazor Server and Blazor WebAssembly. Our focus today would be Blazor WebAssembly. Blazor Server was launched in September 2019, and Blazor WebAssembly has been recently launched for production use in May 2020. So before moving on to Blazor WebAssembly, let's just quickly discuss what Blazor Server is. As you can see in the diagram, the client and the server interacts with each other through a signal R connection, which is basically a WebSocket connection already opened. So all your DOM manipulation, event handling, JavaScript calls are handled over signal R connection. This WebSocket connection is created on the first request itself, and the subsequent requests are handled through it. Okay. So now we can move to, Now we can move to Blazor WebAssembly. So with Blazor WebAssembly, you can see the difference is that all the Razor components, .NET libraries are now present at your browser itself, not on the server side, which are running basically over on WebAssembly. So all your app DLLs, .NET libraries needed, and the .NET runtime is transferred at client side and executed using WebAssembly, and there is no signal R connection. I can quickly show you how it looks on the browser. So I already have an application. I'll just run it. Let me just clear the cache. It caches things. Yeah. And let me reload it. Yeah. Here we can see that all our DLLs are actually on the browser itself. And we'll take a look at two libraries which are being transferred, special look at two libraries. One is the .NET.wasm and the other one is blazor.webassembly.js. Is it visible or should I increase the font?
It's fine.
Can you increase this by a little bit?
Yeah, it's fine now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll take a look at .NET.wasm and blazor.webassembly.js. Okay, I cannot find it right now, but it does get transferred here. So we'll now look at how Blazor WebAssembly works. And the answer to that is actually the .NET.wasm file, which we saw, which is actually the mono runtime, which has been compiled to WebAssembly. The Blazor runtime is actually the blazor.webassembly.js. It actually helps to bootstrap the client application and load all your DLLs, all the .NET dependencies, and all the .NET dependencies and the .NET runtime in the initial request itself. And the .NET.wasm has its responsibility is basically to convert all the DLLs to the WASM bytecode. So all the intermediate language code which has been transferred to the browser has now been converted to WASM bytecode by .NET runtime, which is .NET.wasm. And one thing here to note is that since I cleared the cache right now, so one thing here to note is that all these DLLs are loaded only on the first request. After that, if I reload it, they are being cached and you will see no DLLs being transferred again. I just do it all. Yeah. So all of that was transferred only on the first request. After that, there were no DLLs and everything. Nothing was there and everything was cached. Yeah. Yeah. So now that we have seen that all the DLLs are actually present on your browser itself, we can quickly see that you can host your application purely on client side. Purely on actually you can write your application purely on client. It's client code as a client code. There's no need of server, and you can host it as a static website. Maybe just upload the DLLs on S3 bucket and serve it through CDN. Until unless the application needs a database access or anything, there would be no need of no need of server. The next I'll talk about is some of the features of Blazor WebAssembly. There are a lot of features, but we'll be focusing on 4 of them. Number 1 is JavaScript interops, and I'll be showcasing it through our demo. So I already have an application here running, which is basically to register yourself for the webinar. And I'll quickly show you the project. Yeah, so I have a server application here, which is a API code, and then we have a client, which is basically a front-end code, and then there's a shared library. So for first one, the JavaScript interops, it basically means that your C# code can call your JavaScript methods, and your JavaScript methods can call C# methods. We'll look at first how from C# method you can call your JavaScript methods. Okay. And for that, the library which helps us doing is JS runtime. So Blazor provides us a library known as JS runtime, which helps us doing so. So I have a form here. Let me just, yeah. So I already have a form here, and on the press of register, it basically calls add participant function, which is a C# function. Here I am just increasing the count of number of participants, but with C# being here, you can use a lot of .NET libraries or any powerful libraries, let's say machine learning libraries or video optimization libraries or image optimization libraries, and take a full use of the power that .NET provides us. And then and I'm here calling basically the JavaScript method, which is alert, and which is here in this utility.js, which alerts me that I have been registered. So if I'll quickly just fill in my details. Yeah, so you have been registered, and if I click OK, the count has already also been increased. Now we can look at the reverse, how you can call the C# methods from your JavaScript methods. And for that, your C# methods should have an attribute, which is JS invocable. And to demonstrate that, I have this get passcode, which is to get a passcode for the webinar. It will just, it takes the benefit of random function of C# method and generates a random meeting passcode, but it is being actually called from a JavaScript method, which is get passcode. Yeah. And the first parameter to it is your your assembly name, and then the method. If I just call this here, I'll just get a random number 44, which will be a passcode to the webinar. The second feature I'll be talking about is code sharing. So code sharing is basically that you can share the same C# code between your client code and your server code. Here I've already created a shared library, and which has a participant class. All the validations which are applied to the participant class will be applied both to the client model as well as the server model. And the same model can be used to represent a model in a form, maybe in a form at client side, and then at a server, and maybe as a DTO, or let's say as a representation of a response to the client. So I have validations here like short names only. So if I just write a really long name here and I try to do it, it gives me a error that short names only. Or if I don't do a right email ID, it will give me the email field is not a valid email address. And we can see how it is done. So here it is. It's just basically creating as we create an object for any class. So I've already declared object here for the participant class, and it has been initiated here. And this edit context has been associated with the form, and the form data and everything, and all the validations has been, and it is being binded with the form. It is as simple as that. Okay, so yeah. Now next we can talk about is the authentication part. How Blazor WebAssembly is helping us with authentication. So Blazor WebAssembly provides us the support of OpenID Connect, which is a standard auth protocol, and with which you can actually set up user logins by through things like Azure Active Directory, Google login, or Facebook login. Again, all the code can be on the client side itself, and there would be no need of a server side code. The next one is the progressive web apps. So Blazor WebAssembly basically provides a PWA template, which helps your web application to behave like the native applications. It gives an option to install the application on your operating system and run it offline. So this is how basically the Blazor WebAssembly is giving us the power on the browser. And one of the use case I can think of it is that the games which were actually initially targeted for, let's say, PS4, Xbox, now can be targeted for web also. The last thing I would like to talk about is the current challenges which are faced by Blazor WebAssembly are. Number one is the no ahead of time compilation. As we saw, all the DLLs were being loaded on the browser, and the WASM was created on the browser itself. So there was no conversion of your DLLs to WASM bytecode before sending it to the browser. So the next step that Microsoft is taking with .NET Core 5 is ahead of time compilation, so that it receives WASM bytecode instead of DLLs. The second one is the startup latency. As we saw that on the first request itself, we receives all the DLLs and the .NET runtime and everything. Currently, the application was very light. It didn't take much time. But consider a scenario where the files are very heavy. It will take a lot of time, and it will will not be a good user experience. These are the two things which Microsoft would be focusing in its next release for Blazor WebAssembly. Here are some links which you can refer. The first one is, it gives you a really good samples if you want to learn Blazor. And the two other tools are actually already successfully implemented WebAssembly use cases. These are not Blazor WebAssembly use cases. They are using C or C++, but yeah, they are the useful WebAssembly. I don't know why it's not. Yeah. So that's it for this talk. I think we can take the Q&A now in the section.